Hey friends, it's Elisa here with the Rite Stuff. We are being joined by a very special guest, Marcello Surjopolos. I need a little help
It's a
with
hard
that.
one.
Thank you.
Yeah, the first day of school was always fun because you look at the teachers and they're looking at the word and they're like, how do you say that? And they'd say Smith, Sorensen, and I knew it was coming up, right? I knew it was coming up.
Yeah.
Surjopolos, S-U-R, and I'm like, oh, it's coming. And then they just look at the paper, look down, like, oh my goodness, how do you say this?
I know.
And
My
then
last
I'd
name
say
is
it for them.
Scherzinger.
Yeah.
I get it.
So you get it, yeah.
I get it. Totally get it. So today, what if I told you that being prepared isn't about fear, or it isn't about being a doomsdayer? What if I told you it's more about freedom and an actual pleasant way of life? So we have brought the expert in, and I'm telling you, he is the expert. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself, but he's got a medical background as a firefighter, EMT, medic, right?
Not medic, but EMT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also has a really strong business side. He owns several businesses in the emergency preparedness industry. He owns one of the largest food storage companies called the Food Storage Depot, which is out in South Jordan, and a couple of other companies that I'll let him tell you about. He's also this face. Like, do you recognize this face? Like, look, he's right there. Okay. So he's written The 7 Steps to Exceptional Emergency Preparedness. This is a must-have for every home. So get your saves on Amazon.
Actually, if you call our store, you'll get even a better offer to help people get prepared.
Nice.
We teach people how to get better prepared in 90 days, literally in 90 days, better than you can get prepared in 10 to 15 years.
Okay, this is what I want to hit on right now. Let's get right into this.
Yeah.
So I'm a little over 50.
Yeah.
I mean, I started this emergency preparedness thing, I was probably around 25.
Okay.
And it was overwhelming, did not know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't.
And you're not alone, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
But I went out and bought, well, later on, later in life, 10 years later, we had like 7 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out and bought however many pounds per person of rice or wheat that you needed.
Yeah.
So then a year or two later, I thought, well, I better learn to make bread.
Yeah.
So made this bread, and it was like a brick. It was terrible.
Totally.
So I'm like, what's wrong with this?
Yeah.
Found out that it was red wheat. Did not know there was a white wheat.
Yeah, and and both of them are good. But if if you can't get enough gluten and everything else, you're going to have problems. Or if you don't know how to make the bread, right? You don't know how to let it rise and everything.
2
else.
issues there.
Right.
One, it took me 35 tries to learn to make bread.
Yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating that. But I did not like the red, so I had to get rid of all the red, start all over with the white, and that's a lot of money wasted.
Oh, totally.
A lot of time and money. So if I had someone like you in my life, my life would have been so much better in that area. But tell us a little bit more about why you're here and why you're doing. People like you are so rare.
Thanks. I didn't mean to do this. In all reality, it wasn't something I was aiming for. So I'm the former director of entrepreneur development for the state of Utah. I've done over 30 companies. About 15 years ago, 16 years ago, something like that. 2 investor friends of mine, very wealthy, really good friends of mine, called me up, and they said, Marcello, you pick a niche of business, you pick a team, and we'll fund whatever you want. Wow. And I said, sure, I know exactly what I've been wanting to do for a while, and I'll pick a team. So I put a team together, and they said, yeah, you just tell us how much money and we'll just do this. The funny thing is, 15 years later, whatever, they're still my best friends, and we never even had a written contract. Isn't that cool?
That is.
It's like that doesn't happen these days.
I want to be friends with your friends.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the type of business you should be doing, right?
Yeah.
You should be always under promising, over delivering. Actually, over promising and over delivering. That's even better, right?
Yes.
You're saying you're going to do something, and people are like, no way, and then you do more than that.
Yeah.
And when you have 2 groups of people that are doing that, like over promising and over delivering, over promising, over delivering, you come out with a product that's 15 times better than you could have expected because you're both givers. Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. But that's what they came to me and they said, like, what do you want to do? And I said, I know exactly. And I put the team together. It was a Saturday morning. And I told one of the teammates, just got off the phone with him, said, Ryan, I'll call you in a little bit. I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to find a company we can purchase. That way we can get started, from the get-go without having to invent all the business. Right. And he said, awesome. I went to hung up the phone with him, went to Google, and literally, I mean, again, this isn't, I can't take credit for this. This whole company, I mean, we're the largest emergency preparedness retail store in Utah, and Utah is the center of preparedness in the world. We have the #1 emergency preparedness course in the world. Okay, hundreds of thousands of dollars in mistakes to learn what we learned. Okay, most people can't do that. We have people at the conferences I teach at. Okay, they will be in the front or the back, and they've been doing preparedness for 30 to 50 years. And they're like this. They're like, yeah, go ahead and try to teach me something new, right? And then they come up to me afterwards and go, I had no clue. And I'm like, yeah, because you're not a manufacturer. You're not, you know, you don't own these businesses. You don't know what works and what doesn't work. And our motto is to help families get prepared the right way the first time. Owning the longest lasting emergency water in the world, one of the top food brands. It just goes on and on and on. And so all that type of experience has started with this day that I was in front of that computer. And what happened is I was about to type in the niche I was going to go for, the business niche I knew would do me really well, millions of dollars, all this, whatever else. And as clear as day, something from above said, do food storage. And I was like, what? And I was like, didn't expect that. Do emergency food storage. And I'm like, huh? And so I went to the internet and I just started looking down the internet, and I went to page 2, and there was a company called Food Storage Depot. And I looked at its backlinks and I go, wow, we can rank this on page #1 with my SEO friends pretty quickly. And I thought, yeah, I'm just going to call this guy out of the blue. And I called him up and he goes, well, it's not for sale. And I wasn't planning on selling it. And he was working out of his basement, small company, good at good marketing guy. And he didn't even make his own food. I mean, he was buying it from somewhere else and selling it somewhere else, selling it online. And I just said, well, is it up for sale? And he goes, wasn't considering it. And then he threw out this big number and he says, but I would sell it for this much. And I said, okay, let's buy it. And he goes, what? Now, 14 years later, whatever, when I saw him or talked to him last, he said, Marcello, you have no clue what that did to bless my family. That was the money we needed at the time to be able to do some things that blessed my family. And I didn't know that. But what's interesting is that door opened up for him, and it opened up for us as well. And so we took that company, made it #3 on the internet, and we ended up shipping all over the world. I mean, Australia, Europe, everything like that, and just learned so much from that growth. And had clients like Navy SEALs and FEMA and just fun stuff. And so since that time, it's just grown more and more. And the reason why these companies and these people keep coming back to us is because we do preparedness the right way the first time. We don't cut corners. We tell people exactly what it is, even if our margins are less and we don't make as much money, but it's the right thing to do because that's what we would do for our families. That's what we do for other families. And the cool thing is what you mentioned, okay? People think you have to be weird to do emergency preparedness. You go back to 2020, like before that, all of a sudden it's like, everyone's coming to me and, they might have thought I was weird before, but like, they're like, help me, everything else. And all of a sudden it wasn't as crazy, but go back even further. About 10 years ago when a company, a TV show called, I think it was Doomsday Preppers. Do you remember that a long time ago? Natural Geographic and a whole bunch of people on there.
Fascinating.
Yeah, they interviewed me 3 times to be on their show.
Oh my gosh, I'm
3
probably
times.
sure maybe that's
they kept coming back like 6 months later and everything. Hey, we want to interview again to have you on the show. You want to know the reason I didn't get on their show? Do you want to know the reason? I wasn't crazy enough. Okay? And I told them straight out, I said, I bet a lot of your listeners want somebody who isn't crazy but sensible. Because, the problem with being a prepper is that people think preppers are hoarders. And the problem with being a survivalist, okay, is that people think, wow, what a fanatic. Either a minimalist or a militant with a whole bunch of guns and bullets, and you're going to kill everybody around and take everything they have. And the truth is, there's a middle ground. And the middle ground is where you have a prepper who focuses on supplies over skills, and survivalist focuses on skills over supplies. You bring those together and you have a Venn diagram right there in the middle where you can get better prepared in 90 days than most people can get prepared in 10 to 15 years without becoming a hoarder or fanatic. And you're a very normal person. And that's what we teach.
So I was reading through a lot of that, and I hesitated to bring this up for this podcast, but I was like, I had heard somebody many, many years ago talking about, would you share your home storage, and I thought, her answer surprised me, and I thought, oh, would I share or not share, and I think that a lot of people would be about themselves, but when it comes to life in general, whether it's a disaster or not, our communities
Yeah.
are important.
Yeah.
And if we can help our communities learn naturally, and you can bring people on board who see what you're about and what you're doing, and it has good intentions, then you can develop your community and grow your community.
Absolutely.
I mean, wouldn't you want those neighbors?
Absolutely.
Like, you wouldn't want to use the ammunition, hopefully.
No,
hopefully you could share a thing or two, or share
Absolutely.
a skill or two.
Yep.
You know, somebody's better at something than I am, or I have something to offer that, they may not have.
Yeah.
So what is your advice on bridging that gap to help make this a normal societal thing?
Okay. So first of all, I'm going to preface it by saying I'm not a fearmonger. Okay.
Yes. That's what I want to
I don't lead by fear.
Express. Right.
I was filming with friends of mine who are YouTube superstars, people from the show Alone. If you've seen that show, they're all on with me. And I just asked them a question straight out. I said, things are probably going to be tough in the last days. If you're religious, you believe in the last days and all that. And things are supposed to get worse than they've ever been in history before, things get better, right? And I just said, how many of you are afraid of that time? And all of them said none, or not at all. Yeah. All of them said not at all. And I said the same thing. I just said, I'm not afraid either. Like, if I die, I die. Big deal. That's not I'll go on somewhere else, right? Yeah. But the thing about it is, what's more important is coming from a place of faith and excitement rather than fear and doom. Fear is a great short-term motivator. Okay, you see the news, all of a sudden you get in the preparedness cycle where you end up buying all this stuff because you're thinking the world's going to end, and then all of a sudden you get used to the news again, or the news gets better, and then you stop getting prepared. And then it happens again, you do it again, stop getting prepared. Then the news gets bad again, and all of a sudden you stop getting prepared. And the truth is, if you're going to get prepared, do it right the first time, but do it because you love it. Do it because you're enjoying it. Do it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And again, follow the 7 steps. Don't get out of order. Follow the 7 steps in order. Get them done. And when you're done with that, you have this peace that comes about you. I remember being in 2020, beginning of 2020, when all the news came out. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay, I was in Las Vegas at a trade show for one of my companies, a different company. Okay, and I remember, I'm not like really afraid of a ton of stuff, but I remember feeling everybody's energy at the trade show. Because the news was talking about, hey, everyone's going to die. Remember back then, everyone's going to die. Stay away from everyone. And this trade show is still going on. And you can see everyone like starting to distance themselves and cover their mouths and not breathe each other's air. And they're trying not to act nervous, but they are. Yeah. And you can feel their nervousness. And I'm like going, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I should be nervous. Yeah. And I started getting nervous because I'm feeling their energy. Yeah. And then I come back to Utah and I walk into my front door, and I still remember this. After all that anxiety, nervousness I was feeling, I walk in my front door and I feel the peace of being prepared. I'm like, wait a minute. I've got plenty of toilet paper, plenty of,
we all do to this day.
I don't have to really worry about anything because I prepared ahead of time. I buy extra toilet paper because why not? I'm going to use it anyway.
Right.
So why not buy extra when it's cheap, right? When it's easy to get. And there's just something magical about being prepared. They say if you're prepared, you shall not fear.
Right. It's so true. I was talking to a very wise podcast studio recorder, videographer. We were talking about this, and, it's kind of like an analogy would be, you're driving from point A to point B, there's no gas stations, and you're going to run out of gas, somewhere in the middle. Yeah. And that's a horribly panicky feeling.
Oh, totally.
Knowing that you're, exposed to elements, whatever's going on. But if in the back tank of your car, you've got a tank of gas.
Absolutely.
A jug of gas. Yeah. You're good to go. Life goes on. And there's that piece of like, oh, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I got plenty of gas to get to where I need to, and I'll fill up there. And
and it wasn't about being a prepper. It wasn't about doing anything extreme. It was about just thinking ahead. What could I need? What might I need?
And
what could happen?
It can be so sensible.
Exactly. That's the word I'm looking for.
And the thing about it is you don't do everything because something bad is going to happen, right? Yeah. I don't put on my seatbelt because I know I'm going to get into an accident. But I still put on my seatbelt. It gives me a little bit of comfort. Everything's good, right? Exactly. I pay for insurance, not thinking my house is going to go on fire, but I still pay for insurance. Yeah. And the truth is, if you do, get some insurance, emergency preparedness insurance, and anything happens, you're covered. Yeah. Right?
There's a lot of peace in that. I used to teach classes on how to eventually cook with your home storage. And, if I told you that you had this item and this item, you could make this. Mm-hmm. But if I told you if you bought this item, you could make this. Yeah. Now, if I told you you could buy, buy these things, you could make
25. Yeah, exactly.
Exponentially it blows up.
Oh, absolutely.
And, I remember thinking that this was important because we one night had like a drill with our kids. The lights were out. It was in the middle of winter. We had them go out to the garage, get their kits.
Yep.
We had MREs at the time.
Yeah.
And they had to, do the heater bag, heat it up, cook it, put it on the plate. Out of 5 kids that were there, 2 of them threw up.
Yeah.
It was too salty. The texture was, they couldn't get it down.
You can't. And there's a reason why the Navy SEALs didn't want to eat the MREs, but they would purchase from me directly because they could, right? They can buy outside of the military.
Yeah.
They kind of the special force, right?
Yeah.
Because that stuff will block your bowels over time. That
It
stuff,
will, absolutely.
Too much sodium, too much junk in there.
Yep.
And most people don't know that. Like a lot of people are running out there and getting those buckets of 25-year shelf life, and there's a reason why they use the words up to 25 or built for 25 because it usually doesn't last 25. But that's the wrong way to go, period.
Yes.
Like I would never tell you if I started over, okay, I would have maybe 10 years worth of food storage myself at my home, not counting the warehouses, the store, all that stuff, right? If I were to start over today and throw away all of that and start over today, guess what I wouldn't do?
Buy MREs.
I wouldn't get pre-made meals, period.
Yeah, no.
That's not where I would start.
No.
Okay, I wouldn't go get the bucket of 25-year shelf life breakfast, lunch, and dinners because way too much sodium. Have you ever tried to eat pizza for a whole month?
Okay. Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah, after a while, you're like, I can't take one more bite of pizza. That's what those meals are like.
Right, and that's what my kids said. But I'd bought enough for every kid to last, 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
Out the door again.
Yeah.
Starting all over. Back then, they didn't really have freeze-dried so much. It was dehydrated
Yeah,
stuff.
and there's a whole gimmick behind that, by the way. Oh. But yeah, I can.
Where were you in my life?
Yeah, I
all
can
these years
educate you
ago?
on this stuff, because we do food, we package food and a whole bunch of stuff, right? But it's true. I mean, if you're going to do it right, you got to do it right.
Yes.
And these companies cannot. You can't make billions of dollars by sending somebody a customized food plan. It has to be the same cookie cutter that fits everyone, and you can send out packages fast.
Right.
But the thing is, you go through on step 4 in here where it actually teaches you what to get for your family specifically, and then it gives you all the worksheets to be able to figure out what you need to buy. And you're going to start with your macronutrients, your carbs, your proteins, and your fats, right? Then you're going to go to your micronutrients, which is going to be your fruits, your vegetables, and your minerals, vitamins and minerals, right? Yeah. Then if you want to, in the very end, as a little tiny bit of it, you're going to get your pre-made meals, but they have to be certain ones because most of them aren't going to work. And if you know what those foods are, the macronutrients, micronutrients, and the pre-made meals that you should get, your food storage is right. And the cool thing is you don't have to rotate it.
Yeah.
Like you're done. Like 30 years later, you could take that and sell it for more than you paid for it 30 years earlier because of inflation, right?
Well, I noticed you brought some samples here.
Yeah.
And so can people go into your store and try samples? Because
anytime.
That is so important.
Absolutely.
Because most of the time you buy, it looks pretty packaged, but then you get it back and it's disgusting.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example right here. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make is they go out and get a bunch of beans and put it in their food storage. Yeah. And first of all, in the United States, there's a couple big problems with that. Most people in the United States don't even know how to cook beans.
No.
Okay. They don't even know what to put in beans.
And they
burn the beans.
Sick if they eat
Second of all, or third of all, fourth of all, whatever you want to call it, is that there's so much water wasted in bean cooking.
There is.
Okay. And also, people don't know that when you store beans, like you're trying to store them 10, 20, 30 years, they harden over time. And when you try to cook them, it's really difficult. So you soak them overnight and then you pressure cook them and they're still hard. Yeah. So you soak them again, wasting a bunch of water, and pressure cooking them again, and you're wasting a ton of fuel when you should be heating your home with that, right? And then you do that 2, 3, 4 times. And we had customers come in, like on the 4th time, they were finally able to eat their beans. So I say, look, if you're going to store beans, rotate it every year. Yeah. But if you're going to store beans for 20, 30 years, like we tell you to, and you're going to get your carbs and your proteins, then get a very high nutrient. Okay, you ready for this? You're going to crunch. Can you crunch in the
I can crunch. You can hear me.
Have you ever had corn nuts before?
Yes.
Okay, try that.
If I break a cavity or something.
Yeah, no kidding. Try that out. These are pre-cooked beans.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I
Isn't
have to
that
admit,
good?
I don't like beans. These are good.
They're delicious. And the thing is, you can add salt to it. You can add sugar to it. Nobody does that.
Yeah,
but
you can
add anything you
like
want
a corn
to.
nut.
Yeah, it's like a corn nut, but it's so delicious and it's pre-cooked. And I can literally be in an emergency with very little water without cooking it, put it in cold water, and an hour later, it's completely hydrated like a regular bean.
So are these freeze-dried?
No, these are dehydrated. Sometimes freeze-dried is better. Sometimes dehydrated is better. In this case, dehydrated is better. With other foods, look at these examples here. Some are freeze-dried, some are dehydrated, and it all depends on the food. If you don't understand food science like I do, okay, you'll get duped. right? You'll get the wrong stuff.
Absolutely.
And
I know I will. I know I will.
That's the thing. So with this right here, 20 years later, I can get my carbs and my proteins and everything else simply by putting in cold water, or if I have a hot water pan for 10 to 15 minutes, no pressure cooking, no soaking. And it's done with the gravy and everything. And you put it on some parboiled rice, not regular rice, parboiled rice.
What is parboiled?
Parboiled is partially boiled rice. So I don't think I brought any. No, I didn't. But partially boiled rice is something they've been doing in India for years. And what happens is if you try to store brown rice, it has too many oils. It goes rancid. You smell bad, and you have to throw it out. So it can't stand decades, right? So then you go to bleached white rice, okay, where a lot of nutrients are taken out and they have to enrich it and everything else. And that can last 30 plus years if you package it right. Now there's a middle ground, and most people don't know about this. Instead of taking the bran off, the brown rice, right? Taking the bran off, the Indians found out thousands of years ago that if you partially boil the brown rice with the bran on it, it'll push the nutrients into the kernel. And then you take the bran off, and all of a sudden you don't have a white rice, you have a brown rice. You have kind of a in the middle, yellowish brown rice, and it acts as a white rice. So now you can get more nutrients from it, and you can store it for 30 plus years. And that's what we tell people to get, because now you're getting more calories and more nutrients, and it's been partially boiled or steamed. So now it cooks faster, and you're just getting a better rice, better beans, everything else. And that's just
huge, and that gives you such a variety in your diet.
Oh yeah.
Because if you don't have heat or electricity, boiling rice for 20 minutes, that would be a miracle.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You get the right stuff. You get dehydrated.
The right stuff, what'd you say?
There you are, yeah. Hey, high five.
Yeah.
So you get dehydrated sweet potatoes, because right here, my workers grabbed me a few things to bring. Let me see. This is, nope, they didn't grab that one. Here's one right here. Okay, so this right here is freeze-dried sweet potatoes. This is dehydrated sweet potatoes.
Okay.
Which one's better for food storage?
I would say freeze-dried.
Nope.
No. Why?
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So this one's easy to eat. It's like super easy. Just you throw it in your mouth and crunch on it. It's done. Yeah, the freeze-dried.
Yeah.
But the dehydrated blows it away in nutrients, blows it away in taste, everything else. This one I had to find, the dehydrated one, I had to pay a premium for this, because I found a company that just put out the best sweet potatoes out there, the best taste, the best nutrients. It probably has about 10 times the amount of nutrients and calories than this does.
Oh my gosh.
And because it's dehydrated, you're getting a lot more food per can because it's tighter. It's a lot heavier. We make less money from this, okay? Yeah. We make a lot more money from this. It's easier to ship. It's super light, and we have better margins and everything else. But this right here, it's heavier, harder for us to ship, but this is what the Navy SEALs buy.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? It's
Folks,
just the right thing.
You've got to eat this up, literally.
Literally eat it up. Yeah, and it's delicious. I mean, here's another thing. A lot of people will do freeze-dried apples.
Yeah.
I recommend dehydrated apples, because apples, anything with sugar freeze-dried, as soon as you expose it to the air, it's going to start sucking moisture out of the air and go
normally
soft.
like in those number 10 cans, and you open that.
And they get soft very quickly because of moisture in the air. Yeah. This is dehydrated. Now, this right here, look at the color of the apple. You see that? What color is it?
Kind of like a brownish.
It's brown.
Yeah.
Okay. What that's telling you is there's no sulfur. Okay. You have nothing keeping it white. Okay.
This is really good. I'm a connoisseur of apples too.
Oh, totally. These are completely natural, and we pay a premium for them, because you're getting the healthiest apples, dehydrated, small, so you get more per can instead of the big chunks that take up all this airspace. Yeah. And you can make pies out of this. You can.
Moms, I think your kids might like this better.
Oh, it's delicious. I can't stop eating these.
I know. I like keep those in my car.
Yeah, but you can do so many things with them. But you just got to understand food. And that's what we, in the workbook and throughout the video course that we teach, I take them through the video course, have them go to the workbook, and teach them to work through to figure out what you like. Because the truth is, I just had 2 of my kids sick. Okay, we were traveling overseas, and we came back with some type of bad flu or whatever. And I could not get my 5-year-old to eat. Okay, I watched his ribs starting to stick out. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's scary. Yeah. And I could not get him to eat. He wouldn't eat anything. And my daughter, same thing. It was hard. She's 8 years old, and I was having a hard time getting her to eat. And she's a little bit more functionality in the frontal lobe, but it was hard to get her to eat. Yeah. Now, during an emergency, you got to understand that people come into my store and say, if it was an emergency, I would eat anything. And I said, no, you wouldn't.
No.
Like, you don't understand food fatigue.
Yeah.
You don't understand the science behind food.
Yeah.
You don't understand there's a hormone in you that creates the hunger feeling. And if you just go long enough, you don't feel hungry anymore, and you don't know how skinny you're getting. And, you know, people on the show alone don't know, they don't know how skinny they're getting until they get pulled off because they're almost dying.
Well, not only that, I think food is very social. Like, I had an illness that I had to go 3 months without food.
Yeah.
You know, I had to be fed through the tube.
Oh my
And
goodness.
psychologically, you go a little, you know, because the smell, I mean, everything starts stimulating things, and you know you can't sit down and eat because it's torture, and you can't watch everybody else eat. But it's such a social thing, and it's a comfort thing.
Oh, big time.
Like, my weakness is banana splits way too late in the
So
evening.
good. We need to freeze dry those.
Oh my gosh, for sure. But I think that if you can find foods that you like, and it's already stressful time.
That's exactly the point. You're hitting it right on.
Yeah.
What happens is this: when we take people through the exercise, we don't just say, you know, here's our pair of glasses, hope you can see right, right? You know, my prescription, hopefully it works on you,
Yeah.
right? We sit there and go through and figure out the foods that your family would eat,
Right.
the stuff you love.
And I think there's so many, and I'll coin this if it hasn't been coined already.
Yeah.
But these mac and cheese babies out there,
Yeah.
or chicken nugget babies.
Totally.
I have one.
Yeah.
I know about this, and it's being passed on to the next generation. But they would not eat anything else.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I really, really tried.
Yeah.
But there's some kids that just have a texture issue or sensitive taste buds. I don't know what it is.
Yep.
But just super picky.
Absolutely.
So if they have options and you have
the right
solutions.
options, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
like I tell people, you know, even when it comes to some of the pre-made meals, where we have some of them in pouches, I tell people, don't do pouches, do cans. It's always the best, right? But what I'll do is I'll have people just spend a little bit of money to get all the foods. We open up all our foods for people to try anytime, so they don't even have to, you know, open them up. They can just come to our store and test them out, and then they can find out what they love. But the pre-made meals, I'll say, grab all the ones you're interested in, and before you spend all this money on it, get your family around a table. Nobody can say, oh yeah, anything. They can't give you any expressions, but everybody has a piece of paper in front of them. They take one little tiny bite of each one to not fill up and not, you know, because the first one always tastes the best, right?
Yeah.
And by the end of 10, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And so you take a little bite of each one and find out what foods you like the most. And everybody's going to write down 0 to 10. And at the end, everybody turns in their sheets and you go, oh my goodness, you're a 10, you're a 10, you're a 10, you're a 1. And you're going to find out what the family loves.
Smart.
Does that
Look
make
at
sense?
That is genius.
And then you're going to
Absolute
buy
genius.
those
Yeah.
foods. And what happens is during an emergency and you're opening up those foods,
Yeah.
most of the time when you have those prepackaged thing, you're like dreading it. Oh
Yeah.
man, I got to eat this instead
Yeah.
of my pantry food and whatever else because I'm out of my pantry food. But when you know that you love the food you stored,
Yeah.
there's a psychological thing like you're talking about where they cannot wait to eat it.
Yeah.
Like I have some amazing stuff. I can't wait to eat the peaches
Yeah.
that are in my storage because
Oh,
they're
yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
You know, my wife loves peaches, and we can soak them and make them all soft again, or chew them hard. You know,
yeah.
just things
Can you
like
imagine
that.
peach pie in the winter?
Oh
That's the
man,
coolest
totally
thing
so
ever.
good. Yeah.
Oh.
And then you can use your wheat and
Yeah.
make your little pie,
Like,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. But no, you're right on. You're right on with what you're saying.
So, out of curiosity, you could have bought this company and just made your millions and just sat back behind your desk and, you know, like
Yeah.
cash those checks. Why are you so vested in everybody else learning about this?
It's my full-time mission. So I don't know if you know this. I'm not taking a paycheck.
No, I did not
So
know
I
this.
don't take a paycheck.
No, I did not know.
And so this has become my full-time mission to help people.
Wow.
And our goal is to help 10,000 families get prepared. And so we just had a leadership meeting right before this, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how can we help more families? How can we help more families, right? Because we believe that tough things are coming.
Yeah.
As good as people think everything is with politics or bad with politics, whatever else, the truth is bad things are coming.
Yeah, you know, and I keep wondering, you know, in this position with first aid and safety and things like that, and your side, you know, more
Yeah.
food emergency preparedness, kind of same. But I'm like, what is it that is blocking people? You know, whether it's finances or not knowing where to start, or not just the know-how, or the stigma that comes with it, or the time. I mean, there's so many excuses. And there was a recent article in, I think it was on KSL, that put like people worry about climate change and politics and wars more so than they do worry about their own safety and preparedness, which in my mind, I'm trying to wrap my head around that still, because I would do everything in my power to try to make sure my family was taken care of, you know,
Yeah.
and then I could help
Absolutely.
those around me.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But I think that there's a time investment and there's energy and education that goes into it. But it sounds like you've taken all of that work out of it and created
I made it
worksheets that are
easy.
easy.
I made it easy. The thing that's holding people back is just committing to do it.
Yeah.
Like I have people do this and literally 2 weeks later they're done. 97% of the people that do the course that, pay the money for the video and the course right here, that we incentivize people to finish it, by the way. We say if you finished in 90 days, we give you some pretty good gifts, right?
Wow.
And so with that right there, we have about 97% of the people finishing the course. That's unheard of in the industry. That's how easy it is to follow. You just press play, start following it, press play, follow, and then we reward you as you keep finishing it, right?
That is such a good thing, because I think, positive reward is, we all, even as adults, like that.
Oh, totally,
For sure.
And it's doable for everyone.
And, I think that there's like option fatigue. There's so many companies. There's so many electrolytes out there. There's so many powdered milk. How do you know which is the right one?
We just teach them.
How do you know, though?
So because in our company, you got to remember 15 years of history, okay?
Yeah.
In our company, we have a motto that if we find something better, we have to replace it even if we make less money.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
I like that.
So what happens is we try stuff from all over the world. So somebody says, hey, we have the best milk in the world. I'm like, okay, let's find out. And people will send us 2, 3, 4, 5 milks. And then I'll give it to my team and I won't tell them, how much it cost.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't tell them where it's from, tell them anything like that. I'll just say, okay, team, I want you to try it out, whatever it is, the food, whatever it is. That's why we have the best carrots right there in the industry. That's why we have the best sweet potato in the industry. Things like that, because my team is picky and I don't give them numbers. And they'll go through and they'll say, okay, this one has better texture, better flavor, better nutrients, better everything. It's a clear winner.
Wow.
And then I'll say, oh, by the way, okay, this is how much it costs. And they're like, oh, wow, that's a lot, But the thing is, again, the thing is we're trying to get people to buy once, cry once, right?
Yeah.
We're not trying to get them to buy something and then it goes bad and then it goes bad and then it goes bad. And by the end, you spend 5 times more money than you would have if you just bought it early the right way the first time.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to worry about inflation and everything else, having to buy it 5, 10 years later for higher prices.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And, totally makes sense. And it kind of goes in line with, emergency supplies. You could have all the money in the world and buy the greatest go bag or first aid kits in the world. But if you don't invest the time in knowing what those supplies are, or how to use them, or even how to fix them if they break.
Or even why you need them. I spend a whole bunch of, there's a whole section in my course that starts with the fundamental questions. So I'll work with survivalists and I say, okay, awesome, you got your go bag. Cool, what's your plan, okay? What are you preparing for? I don't know, a bug out situation. Well, what type?
Yeah.
And I go through and I give my whole Thrivalist step number 1. I go through all these things, all these scenarios and educate people. Because if you don't understand what you're preparing for, like truly understand what you're preparing for, you can only be half prepared.
So I think that we think of go back, we're going to go run out into the woods or run out into the wilderness. Are you
then
really?
What? Then what?
Like, is everyone else going to, or is it just you? Is it more plausible to maybe have another cache over here, or maybe a family member somewhere else?
But I go through all these questions,
Yeah, like, is it winter? Is it summer? Is it...
Totally. And for example, I mean, how far away are you going to go? Oh, 200 miles. Well, how are you going to get there without gas?
Right.
Maybe you should plan on always having half a tank of gas at all times. Understand the traffic patterns came from Southern California, right? We have stop and go traffic without the go, right? It's just stopped all the time, it seems.
Yeah, all the time.
But if you were to have something bad happen there, good chance you, even with a full tank of gas, aren't going to go more than 10 miles sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you're done.
Well, my whole thing is, like, if I was at work, let's say at the hospital, and it's 20 miles away from my house, and I can't drive home, even that 20 miles to get back home is going to be drudgery. I mean, it's going to be hard.
Totally. So what's your plan? And that's the questions we ask.
Right.
You have to have the plan. You have to put it in your mind. What are you preparing for? How long are you preparing for? When you're making your go bags, which is only one little tiny bit of preparedness, by the way, people think it's the whole thing.
No.
But how often are you going to leave your house during an emergency? Very seldom, right? But if you do need to, how can you get there in half a tank of gas with traffic, right?
Oh, wow.
And where are you going to go? And then once you get there, you got to remember the bag, okay, whether it's for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 20 days, 100 days, whatever it is, right? Because you can do it in a trailer full of stuff like I have, okay, where I can go a month easily.
So
okay?
I've done these kits throughout my whole life. I've had ones that I can hardly put on my back. It's so heavy. And I think I've heard ones that shouldn't be more than like 15% of your body weight or some number. I can't even remember. But it
depends on where you're
small.
going again. It depends on where you're going, what you're doing, and everything else.
Yeah.
Because like I show in my courses, that first of all, I don't put it on my back. I've got wagons. Why would you put it on your back? I got dollies. If you don't have to put it on your back, don't put it on your back.
Oh, geez.
But you got to understand, you don't start with the weight. You start with the need. Okay, you start with how far do I need to travel to get to my safe place?
Right.
Okay, and if it's 3 days, guess what? You better figure out how to do 3 days.
Right.
Right. And then the next question is when you get there, okay, the only reason you go there is because it's better than where you came from.
Right.
If it puts you in a more dangerous situation where now you have no food and you're going to die, maybe you should stay at home.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe like public places in the middle of the city.
Yeah, or something, right? A public place for until FEMA comes, which might be 5 years later.
Gosh,
but
yeah,
you know, I shouldn't say that. Sorry, one of my clients, right? But
you're fired.
no. But the thing about it is, but there's a lot of questions you need to ask, and when people actually put themselves in the situation, and again, that's thrival step number 2. We still have 5 more that we haven't even talked about, right? And that's just preparing for sudden emergencies. Right? The rules of 3, you've heard of that, right? 3 seconds without hope, protection, or attention, right? You can die by not paying attention, rear off the side of the road, right? Somebody kills you, no protection or no hope, and you commit suicide. 3 seconds, okay? 3 minutes without air, right? You know the words, 3 hours without heat or cold, right? Temperature regulation, you can die, well, hey, stay there. But temperature regulation, 3 hours. And then you got 3 days without water, and then 3 weeks without food, and then 3 months without human interaction. You can go crazy.
Yeah, there's a huge mental component. So I just completed the CERT training after doing my skills pass off. There's a huge section on the mental preparedness.
Totally.
That some people can go into this hypo state or like a depressed zombie state. And some people can be way over the top, you know, just irrational. And then you've got people in between, and then you've got people who are going to work themselves to death and save lives, you know, and not take care of themselves.
And they sometimes cause more problems and kill more people than those that freeze, right? Because you got fight, flight, or freeze, right?
Yeah.
You have the 3 Fs, right?
Yeah, and you just got to be smart and think about these things ahead of time. And I think that's the whole key to all of this. Is if you're not mentally prepared, how are you going to do this? You know?
And a lot of times, like for example, we talked about me being an EMT and firefighter. Do you want to know why I did that?
Yeah.
I wanted to put myself in emergency situations. This is after I started my company. I'm like going, how can I get better prepared? Well, just put myself in emergency situations. And so what happened is I learned that here is the guru, the person who's doing preparedness, speaks at all these big prepper conferences, survival conferences on TV, all this stuff, right? I'm thinking, wow, cool guy. I get in there as a fireman one time, and I got off the rig, and here's a guy that ended up dying. You know, he ended up crashing on the freeway, but he wasn't dead at that point. And there were people all around, there's so much commotion. I got off the rig and I froze. I mean, I thought, here I am trained in fireman 2 and, you know, all the EMT and all the, you know, all the stuff I get trained in. And I froze because of my ADD. Okay, my attention deficit disorder kicked in with all the things happening. I couldn't think. And I got very disoriented because with ADD, you either hyper focus or you can't focus. Well, I didn't know that was going to happen to me. And when I got off, I'm like, oh, and 5 seconds seems like an hour in that situation. Until one of my fellow firefighters said, Marcello, stop the bleeding on his groin. And then I could focus and stop. I stopped it and tried to do everything I can to save that man's life.
But you just never know how you're going to react, even when you're trained.
Exactly. But I learned something about myself. I learned that even in a situation where I think I know everything, if I don't address that weakness and take a deep breath, right? Get off the rig and go,
I got this.
And take a breath and just look at it. And for 5 seconds, which again is eternity, assess the situation and then create a 1, 2, 3 step plan in my brain to follow. Okay. I might freeze again. You know, I need to know what I'm going to do. I need to, okay, this is what happens. Okay. I just triaged it. That's what I need to do. Okay. And that might take 5 seconds, again, an eternity, right? In that situation. But I learned that about myself. And so a lot of times, you know, people won't know. I mean, you don't know how you're going to act. But what you can do is, if you want to get away from that, prepare. Right? Just put yourself in a situation where you imagine, like in my course, I tell people I give them the scenarios. I put them in situations to the point where they imagine themselves in the situations. So therefore, they're more prepared when that time comes. Okay. And that's really, really powerful.
It is, because you never know how your kids are going to react, your spouse. Are they going to quit functioning? Are they going to get depressed? Because I think, you know, initially you'll see all these people come and help and you think, oh, this is great, you know, we're going to be fine. Then people start leaving and then you're still left with a disaster. You're still left in a mess. And you realize this is going to go on a long time. And I don't have a job to go to. What am I going to do? You know? So what other disasters can happen in people's lives like when I use the word disasters, not catastrophes,
Yeah.
like natural disasters,
Yeah.
where skills like this and preparations like this would come in handy.
Yeah. Well, there's a ton. I mean, job loss, right?
Yeah.
You have the like
Starting a
the
new business, that kind of thing.
starting new
Yeah.
business, right? Exactly. But there was a time where my wife and I, we had grown our company to number 3 on the internet. We were starting to grow bigger and bigger, shipping all over the place. One of my employees, over 2-3 years, robbed us blind. I didn't see it. He went to prison for 10 years and left my wife and I almost bankrupt.
Disgusting.
And I told all my investors, that's why we're best friends still, that I will pay them every cent back. They said, you don't have to pay us anything. We know what happened. I said, don't take that away from me. I hired the guy. I'm responsible. Do not take that away from me. And so with that experience, we had nothing. Okay.
Wow.
And we couldn't, I couldn't pay for anything. I didn't have $1 for anything.
Oh, that's such a scary feeling.
So it's crazy because here I am trying to keep the business alive all day long and then going to a smoky call center at nighttime, doing phone calls, trying to sell products just to keep our house from being foreclosed on, right?
Yeah.
And making sure we were never late on our house payments.
Right.
But we didn't have even $1 for my wife and I to go out. I remember we couldn't even buy food, okay? And when you have that type of situation, first of all, miracles happened, which was amazing. All these things happened to help us out. But because we had supplies, because we had things stored up, because we followed the 7 steps,
Right.
okay, it made it so much easier because we were prepared for a time of financial trouble,
Yeah.
right? We could handle that.
Yeah, and I can
right?
relate more and more to that, this phase of my life, which
Yeah.
I wish I couldn't, but I can. But I do have a sense of calmness about it because I don't need help with food. Like I'm
Yeah.
good in that area. Like
Yeah.
I have preparations. I've taken so many classes on how to cook with it.
Yep.
My husband wishes I would cook, but
Yeah.
not going to happen. So and there's a sense of peace.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I think that it doesn't have anything to do with faith or religion or anything like it.
It's just common sense.
It's just common sense. It's
Yeah.
just like I'm prepared. Like it
Totally.
would be like, if I was going to prepare myself for a new job occupation, I would want to find out everything I could about it.
Yeah.
And before I jumped in, right?
Yep.
That's what I'm hoping people will do with you is that they'll find out a lot about it before
Totally.
they just jump in.
And again, you don't have to be crazy.
I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
And I found out, I could just tell you story after story after story about how I learned the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so frustrated you were not in my life back then.
The thing is, I lived in Brazil over 2 years. If you were to take those 2 years cumulatively, it was over 50,000% inflation in those 2 years. Okay, and it's interesting because I learned a lot of big lessons with that, and I brought those to my emergency preparedness as well. And it's easier and better to store up things that aren't going to go bad. Okay, that you're going to use anyways. Store them up when things are cheap.
Right.
Right? If you could go back and store up a bunch of stuff from the 1980s, like toilet paper, whatever, that's not going to go bad,
Yeah.
and just store it up and be able to use it today at today's prices if you lost a job.
Yeah.
You sit there and say, man, I wish I bought like 50 times that because you're getting it for 1 cent compared to $1, right?
It is so true.
You know?
And I think there's something to be said about learning from other people's experiences. And I'm sure you run into people in your life who taught you things or you've learned the hard way. I remember talking to a nurse many years ago who was in the California earthquake. And I said, if you had one piece of advice, what would that be? And she said, I would always keep shoes next to my bed. And I said, well, why is that? She goes, because when the apartment shook, all of the glass plates fell out, shattered everywhere. And she just
Windows and everything else. Yep.
cut her feet to shreds.
Yeah.
So I'm like, mental note to self.
And guess
shoes
what I
under the
have right
bed.
next to my bed? And guess what my family has next to their bed,
Yeah,
right?
and
It's an old pair of shoes.
Yeah, and you talk to people who've been through it, whether it's a hurricane, tornado, whether it's whatever it is, they obviously, wish they would have been prepared, right?
Yeah.
Like take it seriously, learn from other people, and just do it.
Yeah.
Granted, we're not in a place where a hurricane or a tornado could just like sweep it away. I mean, earthquakes, they'll shake and rattle like
Totally.
but it's not going to just blow away and disappear.
Yeah, I mean,
And even if all of that were to go away,
yeah.
you still have that skill set. You still have that knowledge that no one can ever take away.
No, not at all.
And there's something to be said about rebuilding.
Absolutely.
If something happened to my house today and all of that was gone, I'd be like, you know what? Let's do it again.
And that's why when we name Thrivalist, positive word Thrivalist, right? That, our company is called Thrivalist, right? When we talk about preppers and survivalists coming together and creating a Thrivalist, that's very sensible, not fanatical. The truth is, if I had all the supplies in the world, but I had no skills to use it, okay, or if I lost my supplies because it got ripped off by a whole bunch of rioters or my house got burned down and I have no skills, I'm dead.
Yes.
Now, on the flip side, you can have all the skills in the world, and you have no supplies. And that's an interesting one because I was at a survival conference a few years ago, and a guy was walking in the the dirt little parking lot with me, and he said, Marcello, it's awesome you teach about prepper supplies and prepping supplies. And I said, but I really need that. I know how to live off the land. And I said, well, why would you do that to your wife and your kids? Like, seriously, it takes about 6 hours on average to find enough food just for one person per day.
And energy.
And all the energy that goes along with it. But you're not even talking about being in a neighborhood where a whole bunch of other people are trying to find food, or in the local mountains where everybody else is trying to hunt the deer, right? You know how the deer disappeared in the Depression, right? You could barely find anything after a while. And I said, why would you do that to your family when you have the opportunity right now, you have the money right now, you have the time, you have everything you need right now to store up a bunch of supplies. And if you get in an emergency and you have awesome skills and you can use those and never have to dip into your food, sweet.
Yeah.
But if you do need to dip in your food, at least you have it. Right. And he said, you're right. Good point. There's no sense of being macho,
take the
right?
ego out of it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to be macho about things.
Right.
And so it's just sensible. But his skills would help somebody without supplies, and the supplies would help somebody even with skills.
Beneficial. So getting to know your neighbors, back to that.
Yep, totally. So you're only as prepared as your neighbors.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. If it's a mathematical impossibility, even if I have 10 years worth of food storage in my house, to feed 300 houses. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like my family's not going to get anything.
Right.
Mathematical impossibility. And so the truth is, you have to prepare your neighbors. Now, some people are out there, the people who are listening to this show are in a neighborhood where they know their neighbors would never participate, right? They can care less.
Yeah.
And there's something inside them saying, we should move, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
You should move, but you don't want to. You're not doing it out of fear. You're doing it out of faith. You're sitting there saying, something's telling me I probably should move.
Yeah.
But it's so uncomfortable to do it. And I say, get over it.
Yeah.
And then other people are like, we got to move. But something's saying, no, you stay here.
Yeah.
Even though it's dangerous and neighbors aren't going to do it, you just do what's right. Just stay here. Trust me, like things are going to work out. But you have to get your neighbors prepared as much as possible.
Right.
And the worst way to do it, like I have a whole section that teaches all these skills on how to do it. The worst thing to do it, I'm going to be graphic here, is throwing up on people. Yeah. You got to get prepared. The world's going to end. And Russia's going to bomb us, blah, 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 and everything else.
So role play with me. I'm your neighbor.
Totally. Yeah. I'll tell you what I tell people. There's a whole bunch of skills I teach, like a ton of them. But what I do is I teach one of the skills is taking the temperature. You know how you put your toe in the water before you jump in the water, right?
Feel it out.
You just kind of feel it out.
Read the room.
So for example, you never have to know I'm into preparedness or even want to do preparedness.
Right.
And I can sit there and say, hey, did you see that news about like Russia possibly bombing us and all these people getting prepared? What do you think of that?
Yeah. That's a good way to test the waters.
Yeah. And you say, well, I think it's crazy. Like you shouldn't get prepared. I go, really? How come?
Yeah.
And I find out where you're at.
And curiosity.
Totally. Yeah.
Be curious.
And the thing about it is now I can figure out where you're at. You're probably not the person I'm going to say, we got to get prepared.
Yeah.
Because you're not ready.
Right.
And people will only get prepared when they're emotionally ready to get prepared.
Yeah, there's that whole spectrum.
Totally.
Preparedness.
Absolutely. Now, if you sit there and said, yeah, I think preparedness is super important. Like, what do you think? Why, like, how would you do it?
Yeah.
And now you're teaching me. You have no clue I'm interested in preparedness.
Yeah.
I'm just a spectator at this point asking you questions.
So my neighbors aren't going to be suspicious at all when I show up at their house?
Yeah, I mean, in all reality, there's so many different techniques.
Yeah.
Another technique is if you can find a leader, like say you know a ton about preparedness like you do, right? And you know a ton about helping people out with medical and everything else. Say nobody else knows that and you live in an HOA or you're part of a church group or whatever you want to do. And you get a leader to sit there and say, guys, let's all get prepared. And they respect that leader.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a lot easier for that leader to say, let's get prepared. And by the way, could you help lead this? I know you might not know a ton about preparedness. Maybe you do. I don't know. But would you mind leading this and putting you in charge of it? And all of a sudden, you just got permission to help everyone. They just accepted you as a leader that the leader appointed. Does that make sense?
Wow.
And all of a sudden, it's a lot easier. Now, if you want to get critical mass, you got to get 1 out of every 3 homes prepared in neighborhood.
Interesting.
That's really difficult to do. I've tried it.
Yeah.
Okay. In one of my neighborhoods that I just moved from before where I'm at right now, it was probably maybe 200, 300. I can't remember exactly houses. I probably helped about 50 of those houses. Mm-hmm. That was the most I've ever done.
Wow.
Okay, it's really difficult, especially with one person.
Yeah.
But you get 1 out of 3 houses to get interested in preparedness. Then all of a sudden you have neighborhood meetings. You can get group buys and buy things for cheaper.
Right.
You can get everybody interested. And if you have 1 out of 3, guess what the other 2 are thinking?
I better get on board
Yeah, this
here.
is interesting. I mean, I'm feeling a little bit left out here. Everybody's
Yeah.
talking about this, right?
Yeah.
And you get a critical mass going.
Yeah.
And again, that's really difficult to do. And what I say is, I suggest just following the steps inside my course to be able to do that the right way.
So for people who are listening, if you were to give them 3 things, 3 skills to start with, what 3 would you recommend?
I'd start with mindset.
Yeah, that's
okay.
a good one.
What I'd say is this. First of all, fear is a short-term motivator.
Yep.
Faith is a long-term motivator. The part with mindset is also, like, I used to be in charge of a youth group or youth camp with about 50,000 youth. It was the largest in the world. And I would sit there and talk to a whole bunch of youth, and I'd say, hey, what's your favorite sport? And they'd say soccer, baseball, basketball, everything like that.
Yeah.
And I go, awesome. Let me ask you a second question. What sport do you know the most? And 9 out of 10 times they would say the exact same ones. And I'm like, let me teach you a principle you just taught me. Okay. The principle is this: you love what you know.
Yes.
Okay. The more you know about something, the more you love it. You might hate piano at first, but the more you learn piano, the more you love it.
Right.
Because you know it.
Right.
You might hate sewing at first, but the more you learn it, the more you know about it, the more you love it. It doesn't matter what it is in life. The more you know about it, the more you love it. In fact, a lot of youth out there are creating their identities around that. Did you know that?
No.
So they're creating their identities around what they know. So if they're really good at gaming, they become a gamer.
Yeah.
Okay. If they're really good at skateboarding, they become a skateboarder, right? Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is, surfing, surfer, whatever they learn is creates their identity. Now, just out of, for those parents out there, identity is created for kids through what you know, who you associate with, and how you're recognized. Oh, you're president of the Key Club. Okay. Now there's the identity. Okay. You're voted most all around in high school. There's
That's
your
a lot
identity.
of pressure.
Yeah. But I'm saying that's where identity comes from, those 3 things. So as a parent, you want to be careful with those, right?
Yeah.
What are we going to teach him so he loves that thing, right? Because again, the more they know about drugs, the more they like drugs, right? Yeah. Whatever it is, the more they learn about punk rock music. Okay, MTV was amazing at this, by the way. Okay, the more you gravitate towards punk rock music. Doesn't matter what it is. So I got sidetracked. You were asking something on that.
Well, just the top 3 things that you would recommend that
there it
people.
is.
So
mindset. So mindset would be number 1. And with the mindset, again, you love what you know. Yeah. So start learning it, and you'll end up loving it.
Yeah.
Okay. You make it fun, you'll love it.
That's
with
the
the
key.
mindset.
Just make it fun.
Oh,
it doesn't have to be serious and drudgery.
No, not at all. Like get the kids together and say, we're going to learn how to can peaches.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden they gain some confidence. We're going to learn how to make bread, and they fail. And when you fail, you high five a failure.
Yes.
Because anytime you fail, you learn more from failure.
Oh, you do.
So you just got to get in there and start doing it with the mindset. Now, the other part is this. People sit there and say, well, I don't have enough room. I don't have enough money. I don't have this. I don't have that. Well, I've started a bunch of businesses and had a lot of big mentors, okay, billion-dollar mentors and stuff like that. And one of my mentors said something that hurt, because I like to have my heart massaged every now and then, right?
Right, really.
And you say, well, I don't have enough money to start that business. And he said, excuses are useless.
Oh, so true.
Oh, that hurt.
Yeah.
He said, no, you don't have enough money. That's not true. You don't have enough resources. You don't have enough room in your apartment. Well, who do you know in your family who has room? You might have time and they have money, okay, and they don't have time and you don't have money, okay? Well, partner up, figure it out. There's always a way to do it if you put your mind to it.
Wow.
Okay, so get over the excuses. There's always an excuse.
It's time to get over excuses. I think we've excused ourselves being that pre-contemplative state forever, way too long.
Absolutely.
And I've been able to see it happen. I started a business called Grab and Go, long time ago.
Yeah.
And the only time I started getting calls when there was like this disaster, this big fire.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, why? Like
it's
let's
true,
just
though.
keep this going. Let's keep this momentum going. But
Yeah. I mean, I watch people say, well, I can't spend money on that food storage stuff and whatever and get all that stuff in place and everything else. I don't have enough money. And then I watch them spend $10,000 in remodeling their kitchen, or, $5,000 going on vacation with their kids, or $50,000 going, to some resort with their family because they have the money. Yeah. And I've seen people, poor and rich, make excuses why they can't do it. And I'm sitting there thinking, you got money, just get it done. And then all of a sudden,
that desire,
or you don't have money, get it done. because you're going to spend that money on that TV. You're going to spend all this money on Christmas.
Yeah.
Just hold off on that. Put it in preparedness. When you're done getting prepared, go on your vacations.
Yeah.
Go buy your TVs because you're done. You're done with your preparedness.
Yeah.
You know.
So 90 days. I can do this in 90 days.
Absolutely.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm going to trust you on this because I'm going to start all over from scratch and see what
Sweet.
I've done wrong.
I love it.
And redo what I've done.
Love it. Yeah, I have people who've been doing preparedness for so long, and when they go through it, a couple things happen. Either it gives them confidence they did it right because I'm so thorough on the steps.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the 80-20 rule. I don't teach them how to do boat drill fires and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I teach them the 80% that will get them more than 100% prepared for emergencies, more than most people get.
And I think it's even as much as we all know, we don't know everything. And
Yeah.
collectively, you know, when we come together and learn from each other in an efficient way like that,
Yeah.
we can make all the difference in
Absolutely.
your time, money, resources.
In the experience I've had with a ton of people who have taken this stuff, learned this stuff from me, is even when they thought they were prepared, which is sometimes more dangerous.
Yes.
When you think you're prepared, but you're not prepared,
Right.
and you don't know what you don't know, you know?
There's not,
And-
the scenarios haven't come up yet. You just don't know.
you just don't know.
Yeah.
And when they're going through this course, they're like, oh, I missed that. Or going through the course and they go, oh, I missed that. And all of a sudden they button up these little holes that
Yeah.
could make a huge difference. And in the end, they're like going, I did it right. And now they know they did it right because we covered all the steps.
Wow. So tell us how everyone can get a hold of you for these classes.
Well, personally, it would be hard because
Well,
it's, yeah. But if you were to, Food Storage Depot is right there in South Jordan, Utah. Okay, you can go there or you can call the number. It's 801-583-2215. I think that's
Okay.
it. Okay, hopefully that was it.
That's not
And the best way to do it is getting introduced. So, you know, our programs are $1,000+ but we incentivize people by giving them a whole bunch of stuff back if they finish it. And it always changes, so I don't know where it's going to be in a month. But the best way to do it is go to preparednesschallenge.com.
Okay.
And usually for about the price of a lunch, you get introduced to all 7 steps. And then whatever promo we're doing for the big course, we usually have inside there so that people can give it a try and move forward, or just call our team, you know, or stop by the store, you know?
That's smart. And I noticed you've got a section dedicated in your store to classes.
Yep.
And you frequently have people come
Yep.
and teach different classes on
Absolutely.
different topics.
For
so
free.
you bring in experts
Yeah.
from all different kinds of areas. Because it
Yep.
would be one person would be hard to know everything, right?
Totally.
But
And
you
again, it's
get
the
experts.
80-20 rule.
Yeah.
I teach people the 80%.
Yeah.
The 20% you can spend your whole life trying to learn. Okay? Like you, I mean, you're an expert. Okay?
No, well, no. I've had to learn the hard way.
Yeah, but the thing is,
That's not very smart.
the stuff you're learning right now is people would like glaze over if you started talking the terms that you're talking because you're so interested. Like to me, I'm giddy about hypochlorous acid, and people are, what is hypochlorous acid? And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm testing it out, spend $1,000, different machines trying to figure out the best way to do it.
I can hook you up in that area.
Oh my goodness! By the way, I'm wearing hypochlorous acid deodorant right now that I've been testing out to see how long I can go before I stink and stuff like that. And it's just so fun. Yeah, I know, and it doesn't smell. By the way, at least I don't think it smells. Maybe my wife does. But the thing about it is, it's just you get to a point where you can spend your whole life doing the 20%.
Yeah.
The 80% is what we focus on to get people more prepared more prepared in 90 days than most people could get prepared in 10 to 15 years, like I talked about.
Yeah.
But that 20% is where we bring in people like you and people like the clay expert who's coming in tonight to teach that 20%.
Salt.
Yeah, salt and clay tonight.
Yeah, I'm coming to the class.
Which is amazing.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, like stuff I've been studying on this stuff for a long time, so I'm excited.
Genius.
Yeah, he and I were laughing and talking on the phone earlier today, and just all the fun things you get to learn.
And I think that's the key. Like, you know, get your friends together or your family or your sisters or brothers and, you know, make it a competition, you know? Like,
Yeah,
who can
make
learn
it
the most
fun.
and make it fun. And,
Yeah.
you know, have some reward and reward yourself at the end.
And follow the steps. It's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
You don't have to get confused. It's in order.
Yeah.
You do it in order, and it builds on each other until the very end, and you're like, wow, we did it.
Wow.
And it just feels good. And you feel peace.
Yeah.
And you're excited, you feel peace.
We all need a little of that. And maybe this is an answer people are looking for and they just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
But voila, here you go.
Yeah, and we make it easy. We give everybody a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can try it. If it doesn't work for you, you get your money back. We don't get returns.
Well,
it's amazing watching it happen. I mean, people are so excited about it.
I believe in it. Because I've done it the hard way.
Yeah.
And I've seen this, and I know there is definitely there's good, better, best. This is the best.
Yeah.
By far.
Absolutely.
By far. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my goodness, so fun.
I'm so excited to come back down to your store and check things out and I want to test everything down there. So I'll be
Yeah.
down.
Well, thanks for having me. This has been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. All right. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Hope you learned something. Take care. All right.